Frank Coughlin is with us. He is the representative of the Justice for Cecily Support Group, Justice for CECILY.com. And Frank, welcome to the program.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me on.
Good. It's good, and you're welcome. Tell us who Cecily McMillan is and why we should care.
Yeah, and thanks for this opportunity to speak on behalf of Cecily. Cecily McMillan is an Occupy Wall Street activist, among many other things, being very involved in labor organizing, student organizing, was involved in the Wisconsin protests of 2011, and is also, in between all of her activism, working on her master's at the New School right now, and currently preparing herself for a life of community organizing. And the reason that people should know about her is that most people who are on the left are aware she was just convicted on Monday of assault in the second degree of an NYPD officer for a crime that is she is accused or not committed or convicted of having committed on March 17th, 2012, the 6-month anniversary of Occupy Wall Street. And why people should care about this case, among many other things, is that this is essentially a civil liberties case, and that now our suspected or supposed right of having peaceful protests, our right to peacefully assemble, is being chipped away. And many of us in activist circles believe that this is a large hit against our civil liberty to peacefully protest against injustices that we see in the system and injustices that we see on daily occurrences here.
Yeah, we had Chris Hedges on about
this. Sexually assaulted and then charged with assault against an officer.
Yeah, my understanding is what happened, and we had Chris Hedges on talking about this, and he was pointing out that around the country, Occupy protesters are being prosecuted for felonies and then given long probation periods, which essentially forbids them from ever being activists again. Plus, they've got a felony on their record, which makes them ineligible for certain scholarships and lots of different types of jobs and all kinds of awful things. But my understanding is that what happened here is this woman was in this Occupy protest. A cop walked up behind her, grabbed her breast, apparently roughly enough to leave a bruise, and in reaction to that, she spun around and raised her elbow, and it hit him in the face. Is that an accurate description of what happened? I believe it's on videotape.
Yeah, and the only incongruency with that is that she didn't spin around. Her breast was grabbed from behind by this cop who was wearing his police jacket inside out with no hat. And so it was not very obvious that he was an NYPD officer. She was leaving the park, following orders from another officer, texting on her phone, having been charged with nothing prior to this, not engaging any type of protest, peaceful or not, on that day, leaving the park as ordered. The officer came up, grabbed her breast, and she reacted as I think most people would react when being groped like that. She swung her arms back in kind of a surprised manner and hit the officer in the face.
Right.
And then he proceeded to beat her on the ground until she went into a seizure.
Wow. And she is the one who was prosecuted for assault, and she is the one who was convicted and is facing 7 years. And this officer, who has a history of violence against people, is unaffected by this, apparently.
Completely unaffected. And he actually has three cases against him of suspected police violence. That were not allowed in the courtroom.
So this is
the jury because it was deemed irrelevant to
the case. Now this is starting to pick up some steam, and the website is Justice for Cecily, Justice FORCECILY.com, and the Twitter account, the hashtag is Justice Digit for Cecily, JUSTICE number 4 CECILY. Start that with a hashtag. This is starting to get some buzz. Were you there through the trial?
I was there for parts of the trial, and as part of the support team, we were very involved in the day-to-day.
Okay, I understand that. One of the real travesties, abortions of justice here, was that the trial judge did not allow the jury access to information that might have put this in a context the way you described it to me. but only allowed them to see this very narrow window of this woman, swinging her arm back and hitting a cop in the face. And arguably the jury, therefore, with very specific instructions and limited information, made the decision that, basically the judge defined the decision. Do I have that wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were many instances of, and I think you brought it up exactly right. There was no context for what happened. Like we said before, the officer's criminal records of other criminal charges were not allowed in. On the same day as the beginning of the trial, another Occupy protester filed a lawsuit against the same officer for an incident on the same night as the incident with Cecily, for accusing the officer of banging his head on the ground as he dragged him up the stairs of the bus. And none of this was allowed into the court. The accusation that she was beaten and put into a seizure was thrown out as irrelevant, and the defense was not allowed to play any videos because it was deemed by the prosecution and the judge, who are not medical professionals, that she did not have a seizure because they have seen seizures and that was not a real seizure. And as a medical professional, I find it ridiculous that we have this total lack of context, especially regarding very serious medical issues.
You are a medical professional, Frank Coughlin?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Huh. Did she actually have a seizure?
So, I mean, this is the thing with seizures, is that unless you have an MRI, a CAT scan, and an EEG, which is electromagnetic, you're not going to be able to tell that somebody has a seizure. So as a doctor, I would never say that somebody had or did not have a seizure.
Right.
What she had on the ground after having been hit in the head and having seizure-like activity, if she came into my emergency room, I would treat her as if she had a seizure.
Right. But whether she had a seizure or not, she was grabbed by the boob from the back by a guy who wasn't immediately, obviously, a police officer. She swung her arm around and hit him in the face with her elbow. He apparently sustained a bruise as a consequence of that. And based on this woman is facing 7 years in prison.
Absolutely, and you bring up a great point. I mean, the whole thing with not talking about the sexual assault is something that we see so often in patriarchy, and that women are slut shamed. And this was brought up by the prosecution, that looking at how short her miniskirt was, the fact that she had been.
But Cecily was not wearing a miniskirt, was she?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Cecily was not wearing a miniskirt. I mean, this isn't even an example of classic slut shaming. This is the judge was not allowing the possibility that there was a sexual crime that precipitated this to be considered as part of the evidence. Do I have that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are you calling? We have just a minute left. What are people calling for at justiceforcecily.com?
So the website Justice for Cecily will be the home base for all upcoming actions. And right now we are sending out petitions to Mayor Bill de Blasio and Governor Cuomo to pardon Cecily, as well as letter writing campaigns, other types of petitions, and putting political pressure on Cy Vance, who still can pardon Cecily, as well as other members of the legal system.
Cy Vance is the prosecutor? Cy Vance is the prosecutor?
Yeah, he is the district attorney.
The district attorney, okay. Frank Coughlin, he's a representative of the Justice for Cecily Support Group. You can read about it, and I encourage you to get over there. Justice for Cecily, CECILY.com. The hashtag Justice #4 Cecily.